Let's talk about how autonomous driving and the robotaxi fleet could take Tesla and Tesla stock to unseen next levels. And we're actually going to model this out. Obviously, if you're watching this, you are most likely interested in Tesla. So you're in that really small niche community of people that understand that Tesla is not just a car company, but the majority of people out there only know Tesla as the company that sell electric vehicles. They don't know that they have an entire energy sector, that they're working on lithium refinery, that they have Dojo, that they have FSD, that they're getting really close to solving autonomous driving, or know about their plans for a robo-taxi fleet, or even the humanoid robot Optimus. But I'm also pretty sure that everyone that invests in Tesla stock today is doing so not because of what Tesla has already achieved in terms of their electric vehicle sales and making electric vehicles way more common, but actually for the potential that Tesla has for the future. So lots of people, including retail investors, researchers, Elon Musk himself, and some Wall Street analysts, have said that autonomy is going to be so much bigger than Tesla's current EV business. And then the humanoid robot could be even bigger than that. So it's crazy to try and sit and comprehend just how large Tesla could get, considering how big they already are. And Cathie Wood from ARK Invest has said that she predicts Tesla stock to be $2,000 per share by 2027. Now, obviously this timeline is quite short given that we're in 2023 right now, but it is reliant on Tesla solving FSD and then passing lots and lots of laws and regulations in order to actually have, a robo-taxi fleet operating out there. So it's not really guaranteed that Tesla will, one, hit that price per share, or two, do it by that timeline. But it does give you an idea of how valuable different people believe that this could be. So I wanted to spend today's video talking about how Tesla's robo-taxi fleet will actually make them money and just how much money it could really bring in. And therefore, just how great it could potentially be for Tesla stock investors in the future. I say in the future, but actually it's getting closer and closer, and it's a lot closer than anyone ever thought that it was going to be at this point, because they have made such big recent advancements in their FSD. Now, of course, none of this video is financial advice. I am just sharing my own research. First things first is just to reiterate that FSD is so much closer to being fully solved than anyone really thought that it was. They are getting so close now. Recently, they've demonstrated version 12 beta in a live stream that Elon Musk did on X, and it only had one intervention in about a 45 to 50 minute drive. So it was driving around the city and it only needed one human intervention. Apart from that, it was pretty much seamless. On top of this, they have the data advantage. It just means that they have lots and lots of vehicles on the road out there collecting data. This data is brought back in and it's continuously used to curate the best training for the fleet. And they now have 10,000 H100 NVIDIA chips plus their supercomputer Dojo. So they are working very well towards removing the bottleneck in this, which is having enough compute power. They are now removing this so FSD can get better exponentially. So moving on to the robo-taxi fleet. The most commonly accepted model for how Tesla will actually go about doing this, and we don't really know. Elon Musk has spoken about this a few years ago, but of course, until it happens, we don't really know how they're actually going to do it. But a lot of people believe that the most logical way is that current Tesla owners, so people that own a Tesla right now, will be able to basically lend their vehicle to the robo-taxi fleet when they are not using it, which is a lot of time. There is a lot of time in a given day that a vehicle is parked at home or at work and it's not actually being utilized. It is one of the most underutilized assets that people spend a lot of money on. A UK study actually showed that a car is only driven for 1 hour per every 24-hour period. So for the other 23 hours in a day, maybe not that much actually, because not everyone needs a taxi at 3 a.m. So it could be slightly less, but the point is the time that the owner is not using the vehicle, they may actually be able to lend it to the fleet in order to earn money. And maybe Tesla would also manufacture some vehicles purely for their own robotaxi fleet, but I don't think that they will do that initially. Initially, I very much believe that it will be a case of people that already own the Tesla vehicles. But again, we don't really know. So there's a couple of different potential revenue streams for Tesla for their robotaxi fleet. So firstly, the owner of the vehicle would need the FSD software on their vehicle. Otherwise, obviously, they couldn't put their car in the fleet. And it makes most sense to have this as a software as a service revenue model, whereby every single month, the owner of the vehicle pay Tesla to keep the FSD software on their car. Maybe this would be around $200 to $250 per month. I think it's around that at the moment, about $200 per month. So maybe it would get incrementally more expensive as the FSD software gets a little bit better. And this is pretty much 100% pure profit. And this is purely going to Tesla. So this is the owner of the vehicle paying Tesla. And then the other revenue stream is the amount of money that Tesla gets from the customer using the robotaxi service. So assuming that the customer would get into the robotaxi and they would pay an amount of money per mile that they're driven. Some of that money will be given to the owner of the vehicle to, that's a way that they earn money through giving their vehicle to the fleet. And then a percentage of it would also be kept by Tesla. Now, how much this will be is obviously open to interpretation, but we will run through some numbers in just a minute. But one assumption that we can make with quite a lot of confidence is the amount that a customer pays per mile will be cheaper than it currently costs to get an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi, or to get public transport. Because ideally they are trying to take market share off of the other options of public transport. So it needs to be cheaper in order to do that. And also there is no driver to pay. Therefore it must be cheaper. So I'm thinking that the Tesla owner will actually keep the majority of this revenue, maybe around 70%. And then Tesla will take the other 30%. I would assume that they would also introduce a standard rate, like a base rate, whereby the customer pays a certain amount of money just to utilize the robotaxi. And then on top of that, they pay per mile that they travel. And this could change depending on the area, whether it's busy, and maybe even the time of the day. And maybe you have to pay slightly more in terms of the base rate if you want something towed, or you want to bring your dog in the vehicle, or you've got lots of shopping. I don't know, anything that basically puts wear and tear on the vehicle or requires more electricity, you may have to pay more. It makes sense, but who really knows, like I keep saying. So Uber actually have a model where they charge a base rate, operating fee, and a busy times/area fee. So Tesla, just by not having a driver, could be more competitive, but they may adopt a similar sort of model. I'm assuming that the owner of the vehicle would be in charge of charging the vehicle, of cleaning the vehicle, of maintaining the vehicle, which should in theory be a lot easier to maintain than a normal combustion engine vehicle, and also to insure the vehicle. But again, in the future, it is possible that Tesla could actually self-insure the robotaxi fleet. So the point is that there will be very, very little upfront and ongoing cost for Tesla for the robotaxi fleet. And that's really important in terms of how much money this could make. So just bear that in mind as we move through this model. And of course, I invite you to leave any of your own models or anything that you've been thinking about when it comes to the robotaxi fleet in the comments below. The cool thing here is that even if Tesla decide to give up to 80% of the revenue per mile to the Tesla owner, they are still getting paid after the initial sale of the vehicle. So what I mean is, someone will buy a Tesla and then they will buy the FSD, the software. Tesla gets the money for both of these things. And then ongoing, they will get a recurring amount of money paid to them just so that owner can utilize their product to make themselves money. Tesla are also getting a cut. So it's pretty insane when you start thinking about it that way. Now, of course, not everybody is going to require a Tesla robotaxi all of the time. just like they don't now. But the idea is that it will be the cheapest, most convenient and eco-friendly way of people traveling. Apart from obviously, going by foot or by bicycle, or if you need to get a plane because you're going somewhere a car couldn't take you. So over time, the idea is that this will be extremely widely adopted. I think ARK Invest predict that it will cost about 25 cents per mile, and then that could potentially come down more as the fleet scales up. If we look at Uber as an example here, they have said that getting from the San Francisco airport to the city, which is about a 14-mile trip, would currently cost around $38, which works out to be about $2.70 a mile. Now, I don't know if that price is including any base rates or other costs, but let's just assume it does. So if ARK are right, and one day in the future, the robotaxi fleet is about 25 cents per mile, this could completely wipe Uber out. It would be so much cheaper. Even at 50 cents per mile, it would come out to about a fifth of the price. And like I said, this is a really impressive revenue model to have your customers pay you ongoing when they use your product. Of course, they may also decide to not actually let the owner of the Tesla lend their vehicle and instead build themselves out a fleet. This would mean that they would keep even more of the revenue. And maybe they will actually go with a mixture of these options where they have some people lending their vehicles where that is really desired and people want to do that. And then maybe in other areas where they don't actually have enough people offering to do that and wanting to do that, they will supply their own vehicles. If this does happen, the robotaxi fleet, which I personally believe it will, but you need to do your own research and make your own judgment, then this makes owning a Tesla even more attractive because you can suddenly be making money off of an otherwise depreciating asset. And then start to think about this scaled. How many vehicles could Tesla have in their robotaxi fleet in North America, then in Asia, then in Europe, and worldwide in years and decades to come? This is when you start seeing just how valuable and how much value this can add to Tesla. Then you have to start actually putting numbers in your model. Once you understand the different revenue streams that you think that this could have, you have to plug in some numbers to see just how big this could get. And what I want to quickly say is I'm going to share with you some of the numbers that I've come up with. These are by no means accurate. Do not base your investment decisions on these numbers. Take these numbers, tweak them, play around with them, and do your own research to actually question whether you think that the robotaxi fleet could be as big as people are predicting, or maybe not. And leave me any of your own numbers in the comments below, and maybe I'll make an updated version of this video in the future. So firstly, Tesla will be getting the revenue coming in from the full self-driving software that the owner of the vehicle paid directly to Tesla to have that in their vehicle. And we're going to assume that this will be between $200 and $250 per month per vehicle. So this means that one vehicle would bring Tesla between $2,400 per year and $3,000 per year. Then you have to start thinking about how much Tesla could charge per mile. And obviously this is going to completely depend on whereabouts in the world you are. So we're just going to take an average really, because I can't go through every possible scenario here. But just using Uber for an example. In 2018, so bear in mind that obviously that was a while ago, so prices probably have gone up quite a bit since since this data was released. And in London, so again, it's going to change if you're in a less busy city, wherever you are, if you're in a rural area, but they were charging £2.50 as the base rate. And then on top of that, in 2018 in London specifically, Uber were charging £1.25 per mile. And in San Francisco, we saw earlier that it was coming out to about £2.70 per mile, and we weren't really sure, if this included a base rate. So basically, I'm thinking that Tesla could charge between $2 to $3 as a base rate. And then on top of that, they could charge 50 cents per mile, which is already, you can start to see that is a lot cheaper. That is going to be so competitive. And if this is accurate, that would mean a journey from the San Francisco airport to the city would cost at most $10. Again, we don't know this. These numbers are not accurate. We're kind of plucking them out of thin air using somewhat of, logical thinking, but we really don't know how this is going to work. But it does start to give you an idea of the potential of this at completely disrupting the public transport industry, and especially Uber, Lyft, and other companies like that. So once you know what you think on average Tesla robotaxi would charge per mile, you then have to question how many miles the robotaxi will drive per day. And I had no idea. I've never been a taxi driver, so, I literally have no idea. So I turned to Google and I asked how many miles an Uber drives per day. And it came up with 60 to 100 miles. But then I saw another source that suggested 250. Again, it's going to really depend on the area. So I'm just going to say 150. And the average ride sits at about 6 miles. So that works out to be about 25 trips a day. Naturally, some will be longer than 6 miles and some may even be shorter. But even so, 25 trips a day seems like quite a lot. Apparently, the average Uber driver does between 7 to 15 a day. So 25 seems a little bit excessive. So I'm going to drop this slightly and be conservative and say that the average robo-taxi vehicle will be doing about 20 trips a day. Of course, this could go up slightly because, there's no driver in the vehicle needing to take a break and the demand should be really, really big. So we've got our base rate, which we are going to assume as £3. This is an amount of money that people pay to use the robo-taxi. This is not dependent on how many people get in the vehicle, it's just per trip. So we're saying £3 as the base rate and we are assuming 20 trips per day. So that means $60 is coming in per day per vehicle as the base rate. And then we've got the amount per mile. And like we said, we are going to assume per vehicle it's 120 miles per day. If we use 50 cents per mile, this works out to be $60 per vehicle per day. So in total, with the base rate and the miles, the dollars per mile, you have $120 per vehicle per day. If you then multiply this by 365, assuming that the robo-taxi is going to work every single day, which it probably won't, so maybe take this into account. But if it did, you would get $43,800. And when I say that we can assume it probably won't work every single day, that's probably because there's going to be some maintenance that has to happen. Some days there actually may be no demand, like Christmas Day, I don't know, whatever the reason may be. So that will come down ever so slightly. But even so, that's crazy. $43,800 per day per vehicle. And then if we add on the FSD revenue per vehicle per year, using the higher assumption, we would get $46,800 per vehicle per year. And this is just the FSD software plus the dollar per mile. And we said that Tesla would be maybe keeping about 30% of this. So if that's the case, they would keep the whole FSD software money, but they would only keep 30% of the dollar per mile. So this would work out to be $13,140. And then if you add the FSD software on, it comes to $16,140. Again, per vehicle per year revenue to Tesla. So that figure that I just said is including the money going to the owner of the vehicle. So now let's say they have a fleet of 1 million robo-taxis. That's 16,140 multiplied by 1 million. And I think this is just the simplest model and is quite conservative. But again, I invite you to make your own model. You could also model this out slightly differently. You could take the number of miles traveled per day and then actually find the percentage of that someone is in the vehicle paying for that service. Because there will be times when the robo-taxi, when the vehicle is driving to collect someone or is, waiting around without a passenger. There are probably other ways that you could do this as well and other assumptions you could make, chuck in some different numbers, see what happens. The idea is that you start to see the scalability of this and how big it could get. And of course, I don't know, I can't see in the future, but what I do in order to have my own conviction is talk about this to you guys and, build my own models and do my own research. And I've just used 1 million vehicles there. So I'm assuming 1 million Teslas in their robo-taxi fleet. But Elon Musk has said before that he sees 10 million vehicles. So if you start plugging in 10 million even into my conservative model, you can see that the numbers get very, very big. And if they were able to outcompete the likes of Uber, Lyft, standard taxis, and even other public transport methods and take that market share, then this just goes up and up and up. And you're suddenly multiplying, your numbers by millions upon millions. And when all this is said and done, and I've done this model and I thought about how big it can get, I then have to remind myself that this is just talking about the robotaxi business of Tesla. That's not even considering the money that they could make from just EV sales, from Dojo, from their energy business, from licensing out the FSD to other companies, to whatever else they're going to come up with in the future. The humanoid robot, oh my God, how could I miss that? That has the potential to be absolutely crazy, and that could be happening sooner than we know it. Who knows? Probably not. You know, that's going to have to go through lots of stuff. Anyway, the point is it gets very, very big, and it gets very, very crazy very quickly. And my model didn't even consider things like advertising. Companies could pay Tesla to actually have their brand put on the robotaxis, maybe inside the robotaxi. Maybe I've heard people say that restaurants nearby could basically outbid each other to have their restaurant suggested for the passengers. You know, sort of like, this restaurant is in close distance, would you like to stop here? That sort of thing. So then, you know, there's an advertising revenue that you could potentially add on. And also, of course, Tesla may have some expenses. They may have to pay different taxes and things like that. So like you can see, if you are really trying to make this model as accurate as it could be, you would have to plug in a lot more, you know, you'd have to run through a lot more different scenarios. But I'm just kind of doing this to see just how big it could get at a very, you know, overarching level. I don't really want the accurate numbers. I'm not planning to sit here for hours and share them with you. Do that in your own time for sure. But I think it does start to help to think about how big it could get. So just to give you an idea of how conservative my model, my very simplistic, very inaccurate model that we've just been through could be, let me just share what ARC has said about this. So in their bull case scenario, they have said that Tesla's robotaxi business could bring in $613 billion in revenue in 2027 and could account for 2/3 of the company's entire enterprise value. Now, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, considering we're in 2023 and that's only, you know, not even 4 years away. So I'm not sure about that, but I definitely understand where they're coming from in terms of how valuable this could be for Tesla and how big this could make Tesla as a company. Please give this video a like if you've liked it. That will really help out the channel and it will push the videos to more people. And that's all I want to do really. I want to grow our community of like-minded people. And speaking about like-minded people, if you fancy joining my Patreon where you'll get access to my Discord, you can come and speak to myself and all other like-minded people about Tesla and about other stocks and investing in general every single day. And with that, you will get to know every single time I purchase Tesla stock or I change any positions in my own portfolio. I really appreciate you watching this video. Honestly, it means a lot. Thank you for making it this far, and I'll see you in another one very shortly.